Greetings, people of Muskegon. My name is Johann Von Thaden, and in 1881, my wife Lena and I had a chance to buy a refurbished, modest schooner out of Chicago named the Helen. The Helen was 90 feet long and could carry 114 tons of cargo. It was also a scow, meaning that it had a flat bottom. This was necessary for the ship to be able to more easily enter and leave the channels for the various ports that we visited along the eastern shore of Lake Michigan. Those ports included Frankfort, Ludington, and Muskegon. So we hauled lumber from those ports back to Chicago for about 5 years, and it was a sufficiently profitable business for us. Lena, our ship was known among the Great Lakes as a good one to be a crew on because I was known as a jovial captain. Lena, I think, was perhaps more of an attraction to those sailors. She managed the money, hired the crew, and most importantly to me, did her best to keep me sober. So for 5 years, this profitable business occurred, but it came to an end in 1886. On November 17th, we left Chicago with an empty ship. We left our 2 children behind this time because a storm was impending. Now, Lena and I had been in many storms, so we didn't worry so much, but Lena felt that we should leave the children behind. Well, 2 days later, the storm proved to be too much for us. It was a gale storm and a blizzard. Remember, it was in mid-November. So we had just passed the Muskegon Lake Channel, and we attempted to do a maneuver that might save the ship from being broken up on the shore. And that is that we tried to sail the ship directly for the shoreline, and just before it reached the shallow, right up on the shore, we would pull the bilge plug and allow the water in, which would let the ship settle down on the edge of the shoreline. The water in the bilge helped to stabilize the ship so that the crashing waves from the storm would not break it up. And a few days after the storm, perhaps the ship could be pumped out and pulled back out for future use. Well, this maneuver failed, unfortunately. Our ship became more waterlogged, foundered and rolled, and that was the end of Lena and I and our 5 crew. My body was found about 2 days later, and I was buried at Oakview Cemetery, which is right next door over here from Evergreen Cemetery, where I am standing now. Now, that was not the end of my journey, however. Lena's body was found a couple days later, and my brother from Chicago came up to make arrangements for my body and Lena's to both be taken back to Chicago for burial. And thankfully, he took in our 2 orphaned children. Now, I beg to add one thing about that terrible storm, if I may. On any given day, the number of ships wrecked or sunk on the Great Lakes would be anywhere from 0 to perhaps 4 on a bad day. And those were rare, the days with 4. On the day that we went down, 20 ships went down or were wrecked due to that terrible storm. It was a storm to teach men of sufficient intelligence, if they survived it, to have a new respect for the power of the Great Lakes. I invite you to come back on October 9th or thereafter to hear many more colorful and interesting landlubber stories from Muskegon's colorful past at the annual City of the Dead event to be posted on YouTube on October 9th. Thank you and farewell.